Welcome to This Explainer. I'm so glad you're here, because today we're diving into something that is just incredibly gripping, both emotionally and spiritually. We're looking at the aftermath of the great flood of Prophet Nuh, Noah. But, we're not focusing on the crashing waves or that massive ark today. Nope. We're zeroing in on the quiet, honestly devastating moments right after the storm ends. Just picture the scene for a second. The cataclysm has finally passed, the world is completely, irrevocably changed. And a father is dealing with just an unimaginable loss.
I want you to really think about this for a moment. When the deafening roar of the floodwaters finally receded and this heavy, profound silence fell over the earth, what was the very first thing a grieving father asked his Lord? Before taking stock of this brand new world, before even celebrating his own survival, his mind goes straight to his child. It just perfectly captures the universal, undeniable power of a father's love, doesn't it?
Okay, let's dive into this. Section 1, Prophet Nuh's Prayer, a Father's Grief.
So the physical storm is over, right? But for Prophet Nuh, a massive internal storm is really just beginning. Everything outside is perfectly calm, yet his heart is just breaking for his son who drowned. And in this moment of sheer, intense sorrow, Prophet Nuh turns to his creator. He brings up a prior divine promise, basically reminding Allah that he had promised to save his family from all this destruction. It's this incredible moment where raw, very real human emotion collides with total reliance on the divine.
We see this in the Quran, specifically Surah Hud, verse 45. It says, "My Lord, my son is of my family, and your promise is true, and you're the most just of judges." I mean, just listen to the absolute gravity of those words. He is desperately clinging to the fact that his son is part of his household, his own blood, while at the very same time affirming his total, complete trust in God's ultimate justice and truth.
Moving right along to Section 2, Allah's Warning and Reality, Bloodline versus Righteousness.
And this brilliantly illustrates a huge thematic shift in the story. We're moving from deep human emotion straight into divine reality. It's really the core lesson of this whole narrative. On one side, side A, you've got the worldly relationship, the biology, the bloodline, those earthly ties that bind us together. But then on side B, we have the spiritual relationship, and that is built entirely on faith and righteous deeds. The divine response we're about to look at totally shatters the human assumption that biology just automatically guarantees salvation or spiritual belonging.
So Allah's response is immediate and it is profoundly direct. Surah Hud, verse 46 states, "O Nuh, he is not of your family. Indeed, his work was other than righteous." It actually goes on to advise the prophet not to ask for things he has no knowledge of, warning him not to be among the ignorant. So here's the absolutely crucial point. In the eyes of the divine, true family and true lineage are defined by righteous actions and belief, not just biology. Because his son's conduct was unrighteous, because he disbelieved, that biological tie was, for all intents and purposes, spiritually severed.
Which brings us to Section 3, Humility and Immediate Repentance, Submission to the Divine. You have to wonder, how does a prophet respond to such a firm divine correction? Well, hearing this warning, Prophet Nuh, he doesn't argue. He doesn't try to justify his emotional plea or double down to defend his son. Nope. He instantly submits. The grieving father immediately transforms into an utterly submissive servant. He realizes the limits of his own human knowledge, and he just desperately seeks absolute mercy and refuge in his Lord.
This is captured so beautifully in verse 47. "My Lord, I seek refuge in you from asking that of which I have no knowledge." The verse then continues with him literally pleading that if he isn't forgiven and shown mercy, he's surely going to be among the losers. It is a stunning display of profound humility. It shows us that even the absolute greatest of prophets recognize their own human limitations and their complete, total dependence on divine forgiveness.
Let's look at Section 4, Command to Descend Safely, Peace After the Storm. Following that moment of intense spiritual recalibration, we can walk through this timeline to map out the physical and spiritual journey. We start with the sheer catastrophe of the flood, which wiped out the unrighteous. Then, the storm ends, the earth clears up, and literally every trace of the tempest is washed away. And finally, the ultimate resolution, a safe descent from the ark, completely wrapped in divine blessings. It's a gorgeous transition from utter destruction to profound divine peace. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the precise wording used in the divine command. Surah Hud, verse 48 says, O Noah, descend in peace from us and blessings upon you and upon nations from those with you. I mean, think about it. After the harrowing ordeal of the flood, after the agonizing loss of his son, God grants Nuh and the believers with him the ultimate reassurance, peace and abundant blessings. It's just a magnificent promise of safety for the people who chose righteousness. But we actually have to look closely at the rest of that exact same verse, because even in this incredible moment of peace, a warning remains. The verse goes on to say that there will be future nations who God will grant enjoyment in this world for a time, but ultimately a painful punishment will reach them. It sets up this really powerful dual reality. Eternal peace is granted to the righteous believers, for sure, but divine justice remains ever vigilant for those unrighteous future generations who only care about chasing temporary worldly benefits. And that leads us to our final part, Section 5, Message of Patience and Outcome. The ultimate reward. So why are we even told this story? Like, what's the overarching lesson here? Well, these events were news of the unseen. They were histories completely unknown to Prophet Muhammad and his people until they were given through divine revelation. And they definitely weren't revealed just as historical trivia. Not at all. These unseen histories of the past serve as an eternal moral compass for navigating our future. They are literally meant to teach us, right here and right now, how to orient our own spiritual lives today. And this all culminates in the incredibly powerful conclusion found in verse 49. So be patient. Indeed, the best outcome is for the righteous. Honestly, this is the ultimate moral takeaway of everything we've looked at in this explainer. Despite the overwhelming, crushing grief of losing family, despite the terror of the physical storm, and even despite the temporary successes of the unrighteous, patience and righteousness always, always win in the end. It's absolutely crucial to remember. So I want to leave you with this final thought. If the ultimate reward, true peace, divine blessings, and salvation is reserved for the patient and the righteous, how are you going to practice patience in your own trials today? When the storms of life hit us, when our own emotional attachments clash with our spiritual duties, are we going to remember the humility of Nuh and the ultimate victory of the righteous? Keep that question in the back of your mind as you go about your day. Thank you so much for hanging out with me for this explainer, and keep seeking knowledge,